I'm very excited here. I've known of Sheriff Mack for quite some time, and to get to actually speak to him is quite a pleasure. So I want to give you an idea of who you're dealing with here, and I want to give an introduction. But first, let me tell you the chain of events that led us to where we are now. Speaking with Sheriff Mack. While I was preparing for this show, like I do every week, I received a phone call from a friend of mine, and we're going to call this friend Carl. And in his sarcastic humor, which I enjoy very much, he asked me a simple but interesting question. And the question was, do you want Sheriff Mack on your show? And I go, do I want Sheriff Mack on my show? Of course. Who wouldn't want Sheriff Mack on their show? Then my friend Carl said, well, call his wife. Here's the number. She said he could do the show. And I'm like, are you serious, Carl? And I could tell in the tone of his voice that he was serious. So I called the number, spoke to Sheriff Mack's wife, Dawn, very nice. And we worked out the arrangements. So, Sheriff, that's how it happened. Those are the facts of the case. So now let me tell everybody a brief resume of our guest, Sheriff Mack, and then Sheriff will get you on here and say hello. Sheriff Mack spent 11 years with the Provo, Utah Police Department, then moved to Arizona and ran for sheriff in Graham County in 1988 and won 2 terms. While sheriff, he attended the FBI National Academy and graduated in 1992. In 1994, he was named Elected Official of the Year by the Arizona-New Mexico Coalition of Counties. He was also named the National Rifle Association Law Enforcement Officer of the Year in 1994 and was inducted into the NRA Hall of Fame. Sheriff Mack is a member of the Oath Keepers Board of Directors and the founder-president of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, the CSPOA. But I think, Sheriff, the most important is the lawsuit against the federal government, which alleged that portions of the Brady Handgun Violation Protection Act violated the U.S. Constitution. You fought them and won. Ladies and gentlemen, Sheriff Mack is an informed individual who acts and participates and does not just watch from the sidelines. So with that, Sheriff Mack, if I have misquoted or left something out, please let me know. But welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks, Matt. Yeah, you left a lot out, but that's okay. But everything you said was correct.
Okay, if I had a 3-hour show, maybe I could do a little bit better. But...
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well,
so, yeah, and Arizona is where I was from. I didn't live in Utah. I wasn't from Utah. I went up there to go to school. And then I had a part-time job at the Provo Police Department, and I was trying to get on with the FBI after I graduated. And while I was waiting to hear from the FBI, I hired on full-time as a patrol officer for the city of Provo. And then the FBI thing never worked out. I'm sure the good Lord had a hand in that. And I stayed on with Provo Police Department, and then I decided that I wanted to run my own office and thought I'd take a chance in moving back to my hometown and running for sheriff, and I was elected twice. And I was the first sheriff in American history, and at this time still the only one, even though there was a few other sheriffs that joined me in the lawsuit. I started that lawsuit against the Clinton administration, and the real miracle there is I sued the Clintons and lived to tell about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's that. If you look at their history, that's really a miracle. So I'm the only sheriff in history to start and file a lawsuit against the federal government on the issue of state sovereignty and the 10th Amendment, and take it all the way to the United States Supreme Court and win. And Sheriff Prince and I, Prince from Montana, and I ended up at the Supreme Court together on that same case. And it was just really a miracle. We beat the feds, we beat City Hall, we won. And it is, and I will tell your audience, if you want to see the most amazing, powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of America, you want to read that decision.
That is fantastic. You're using terminology to a lot of people that is uncommon. Like you're saying sovereign. People look at you like you're a freak when you say that. But it's a lack of understanding. It's a lack of knowledge of our rights and what you can do as an individual. And ladies and gentlemen, like I said earlier, informed individual. Sorry, Sheriff Mack is informed, but he just didn't say, yeah, that's the way it is. He went and did something. That's what we all need to do. And Sheriff Mack, when we were talking earlier, we've got a lot of these questions that I want to ask, and I know we can't go into depth on them, but we can at least be brief and maybe awaken some of those people or clarify to some others what is actually your rights, what do you have available, what should you do, morality, all these different topics. And I know it's going to be quick and brief, but you're very articulate, a good speaker, and I think you can handle the job. You up for it?
You bet.
Okay. There's no tricks here either. I've sent Sheriff Mack a bunch of questions because these are on my heart, and I think on the hearts of a lot of people. So, Sheriff, if you don't mind, let's just go through the numbers here, and if necessary, we'll cut them short. And if I happen to cut you off, don't take it offensively. It's a matter of time. I have to do it. Sheriff,
all right.
You are so passionate in love of country and being a defender of freedom. As more and more time goes by and the diluting of love of country continues to happen in our younger generations, how does a person, or what does a person do to rekindle that love once again to a person who has either lost it or has not learned it in the first place? And I really focus this, it's on everybody, but I really focus it on law enforcement because we're seeing so much going on that does not look good for the way law enforcement interacts with the people. It goes both ways, but the coverage just doesn't look good when law enforcement's involved. Could you answer that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I actually teach a high school class right now, American government, in a local charter school. And I see that question every day. And what I try to do with my students is try to find some area of the Constitution that interests them, that is a situation where their family might really be concerned about. Let's say one is the right to keep and bear arms, or another one is freedom of religion, or another one is to peaceably assemble or to file grievances against government, or another one might be that they've been destroyed as a family because the dad got a couple of traffic tickets and now can't any longer afford insurance. And every one of these is addressed by the Constitution, and probably the forgotten amendment of the Constitution is the Eighth Amendment, where it says no excessive fines or bail and no cruel and unusual punishment. We don't do a lot of cruel and unusual punishment, even though all the stupid things we see cops do notwithstanding. That's not cruel and unusual punishment. Those are crimes being committed by law enforcement. Our job is not to punish. Our job is to arrest and secure someone for court and a trial.
Yes, sir.
Our job is not punishment. But let's say, these ridiculous and absurd taxation citations, which are all about generating revenue, and somebody can't afford insurance, they can't afford tickets, they can barely keep their family fed, and now they can't afford to drive a vehicle, and then they drive without insurance, and then they get their vehicle impounded, and their vehicle gets impounded without due process, a violation of the Fifth Amendment and 14th Amendment. And so you can always find something that fits somebody's personal life as far as the abuse that they are receiving from government. The obvious one, the most abused amendment, would definitely be the second. I mean, there's 20,000 gun control laws in America, and I will say 99.9% of them are all unconstitutional. There might be a provision, and it might be okay for us to attempt in some way to keep guns away from felons, but violent felons only. I mean, they can make everybody a felon in one way or another, but someone who makes a mistake on their tax return and then gets charged with a felony, and then they can't own guns ever again, never use a gun, never practice self-defense ever again.
Sheriff, can I ask you something?
With a weapon? That's just absurd, and our country is way out of line on that. But we all can find a individual God-given right that affects us personally. Then you want to attack that issue, and you want to have that person understand that if you're ignorant, just like you were saying in your monologue at the beginning, if you're ignorant of your rights and you don't know how to defend your rights, then you might as well bow down and kiss the ring of the almighty people in Washington, D.C., the president or Congress or whoever they think it is, the Supreme Court, and just submit. Submit to their whims, submit to their opinions, submit to their abuse, submit to their corruption, because they own you. And it isn't because you're a slave, it's because you have enslaved yourself through ignorance and inaction. And if you don't know, this is the old adage, and I'm almost tired of it, but if you don't know what your rights are, then you don't have them. So you have to know what they are. You have to be able to defend them. And if you're uneducated and ignorant, you're never going to make it. It's not going to happen. So that's the main thing is there's no way that I can teach somebody to be patriotic. You have to find that for yourself. You have to find out the miracle of America and the making of America.
But I think
you have to find that out. What the founders said, what they did, what they sacrificed for us to sit here on our butts instead of being active and involved. And once you find out what these men did, and also a lot of women, once you find out what they did for us, there's no way you can just sit there. There's no way you can be so unfeeling and incompassionate about these issues. You will love America after you see this. And you know, if you're so stupid, as you also mentioned, if you're so stupid that you can't feel a sense of patriotism after you learn and see that, then basically you're a lost cause, and you're probably not listening to this show anyway.
Okay, Sheriff, fantastic. I'm going to pass up on a lot of these questions and get to something else because you're so thorough in your answer. I don't even want to interrupt, but I want to go down to the question that talks about the spheres, and that is where is it here, Matt? It states rights are so powerful. No, that's not the one I want. It's talking about the spheres of the sheriff and the spheres of the government. In other words, how the sheriff has so much authority in his area because he's an elected official, elected law officer, and he basically can keep out and push out federal encroachment because you're the law of the land when it comes to this county. Can you emphasize and explain on that more clearly, please, sir?
Well, my Supreme Court case actually called it that. They call it the sphere of authority, and everyone has their sphere of authority. The federal government's sphere of authority is extremely small, and in my case it even says that. But we already know the Constitution's purpose was to keep the sphere of authority and jurisdiction for the federal government extremely limited and impotent and small. That's the whole purpose. Now the federal government has stolen and usurped so much authority and power that the Constitution isn't even recognizable. And so, you know, one of them, you could ask yourself this question. If the federal government has nationwide authority and they have the ultimate authority in your county where your sheriff has been duly elected, if they have authority over the sheriff, when did they get it? What year did that happen?
I don't recall.
What happened? Let's say, well, the FBI has ultimate and authority over the sheriff. Well, the FBI was formed in 1935. Who had it before then? And then they said, well, the United States military. Well, the United States military can't be used for domestic purposes. That would violate the 1886 Posse Comitatus Act.
Okay, well,
they don't have authority in the county. Before the question remains, before 1935, who had ultimate jurisdiction in your county? They said, oh, well, the state. Well, the state didn't have any authority then. Or they didn't have highway patrol. What'd you say, the governor does? No. If you look at history and you look at the Constitution, you will see that the people have the ultimate authority, and they have bestowed, by voting every 4 years, for a sheriff who they have bestowed power upon to represent them in keeping the peace within the county. So there is no time that the sheriff's ever ceded that authority or power over to the federal government or to the FBI. It has never happened. No one can show me one single time where it says the federal government has now taken over authority in the counties or the states for that matter. It has always been local, the people, and the sheriff.
Sheriff Mack, the might is right concept happens a lot. If you have the power and the backing of the federal government, and you've got the weight of them pushing on a county sheriff, how does the county sheriff push it back other than what you're saying? We may be right when it comes to the legal process of it all and who has power over what, but how does one push back a giant like that and keep yourself free from them? And you did it. You took the major risk of doing it, but how does a basic guy in old Hickville County protect himself? Does he gather people around him to protect him, to help enforce it? I mean, what's a procedure for a sheriff to do that other than or in addition to going through the courts?
there must be a relationship between the citizens and the sheriff. You must have a relationship with him. Hopefully you're on his posse. Hopefully you help him form a posse. He can implement and utilize a posse however he likes. It can be extensive, just as Sheriff Arpaio does in Phoenix. He has 3,000 people on his posse. They do a lot of different things. He can use them however he wants. If he is concerned about liability, of course, you don't have them out acting as patrol officers. But they can certainly ride with a patrol officer, and if they are trained, as you were mentioning before, if they're trained and certified in the use of a weapon, a Sig Sauer is my favorite, 40 caliber, doesn't matter the caliber. If you're proficient and have passed police certification in using a gun, then why not have that posse member ride along with a cop so that he has immediate backup if he should ever need it? The problem with most officers is they have to wait for backup, and either the victim gets victimized more, or the deputy has to go in without backup. To have another person with you constantly is an extremely safe thing to do for the patrol officer. So, but let's say, back to your question, a citizen who's being abused by the FBI or the IRS or the EPA or the FDA or TSA or any myriad of the thousands of bureaucrats that exist in Washington, D.C., they need to have their sheriff. If you're protesting and you're standing against the feds and your sheriff is standing there with you, defending you, you can pretty much be assured that situation is over and you will win it. And I'm not kidding you. We have lots of examples in my books that show when sheriffs have stood against the federal government backs down, because bureaucrats do not have the authority over you if the sheriff says they don't. And if you agree and allow the bureaucrats to subjugate you and make you submit, and they threaten you, and then the sheriff is there saying, you're not taking anybody in, you're not taking anybody's property, you'll have to go through me to get to them, that's a pretty powerful thing to have. And again, I want to reiterate, this is a peaceful solution. This is exactly what we do at CSPOA. I want all of you to join CSPOA. Go to CSPOA, see what we're doing, CSPOA.org. The solution is there. There's very, very few, and I mean very few, maybe 2, 3 at the very most, real solutions left to us as Americans, real peaceful solutions left to us as Americans. And I guarantee you the Oath Keeper and CSPOA are part of the solution. And voting for another Democrat or Republican in Washington, D.C., if you think that's a solution, then you're more of an idiot than they are.
That's a whole other topic in itself.
Of course.
I keep trying to say they're all being pulled by the same string puller, but, you know,
of course,
they're going to fight you on that. All right, Sheriff, as time ticks on, let me just shout out to everybody. If you're wanting to speak to Sheriff Mack and ask a question, now is the time to call in and get ready. It's 254-773-1400, 254-773-1400. And Sheriff Mack, we're going to be going over in the other half. I'm going to be reading off the Bill of Rights and the preamble, and I'm hoping your time will permit that you can stand by and help me read through them and give any commentary if you can.
Sure, I got the preamble memorized backwards and forwards.
Isn't that
no
great?
Problem.
I mean, when I read that, I go, wow, I didn't even know there was one a long time ago, and I was introduced to it. I'm like, my gosh, it's so powerful, but I don't want to steal the thunder. We'll wait till after 1 o'clock. Sheriff, here's a big one with a lot of people, and it's police brutality. I was raised... Okay, I'm 52 years old. I was raised to look at an officer with awe and respect. And that officer would look down at me and help me out, make sure I was safe. The basic way it's supposed to be. Something has dramatically happened. So here we have, I'm seeing things, way too many things that should not even be in the consciousness of mind to do to somebody. I've seen videos of women cuffed and then body slammed on the floor when you have this like 250-pound officer doing it, and he can control it without doing that. Then you got people in wheelchairs being tased because they don't follow the command to stand up. These are literal. I've seen these. And people being shot in the back from running away, and then people getting cavity searched on the side of the road. This is ridiculous. So what's going on, Sheriff? What do you think's going on?
Yeah, I know what's going on. The problem is the training in police academies and certification, ongoing training in sheriff's offices and police departments across this country does not address these issues. It simply trains people and our police to be careful of their own safety. Safety tactics for police officers have now superseded public relations training and ethics training and making sure that we are true public servants. They do not train in the Constitution. They do not train in the oath of office. They do not train that we are here to protect and defend and serve. They don't really train. They'll say those words, but they never train in it. And until until the law enforcement community in this country addresses the real issues that we are facing regarding police brutality and overzealous police work and actions, then these things are going to continue. We have got to train our officers that we are indeed the guards of liberty, the guards of the Constitution, that we took an oath to defend, protect, and preserve those principles that America was founded upon, that we are here to protect rights just as much as we are here to write tickets and kick in doors and enforce the law and arrest lawbreakers, that we are here as the ultimate protectors of liberty. That is never trained, and until we get back to addressing the changes that need to happen in training, these are going to continue. Not one person has brought up the need for readdressing our training methodology except for me. And the rest of these sheriffs and chiefs of police had better wake up and realize that we're not training people properly in this country.
Sheriff Mack, let me follow up on that. Let's talk about mentoring. I've had 3 young men get ready to go in the military and law enforcement. And with that, I would help train them early in the morning. We'd run, we'd work out. And in the course of it all, I would speak to them and say, look, you're a professional, okay? It's respect. Know the rights of people. When you go out there, you always treat people with respect. If the individual you're dealing with ends up becoming disrespectful, then you just be professional. Okay, so mentoring. People should go out there and mentor other people. Now, I'm moving fast here, Sheriff. I've got a call on the line. He wants to ask a question about police corruption. I don't know where it's going to go, but if you want, we can take this call. His name is Annan. Would you
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely. No problem.
Paul, if you want, let's get him on the line. Annan, am I saying that name right?
Hello?
Hello, Annan?
No.
I didn't catch your name. What's your name?
I asked to speak anonymously.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Annan.
Right.
I didn't catch the abbreviation. Okay. I better check my shorthand.
That is
Okay.
funny. That's good. It's fine with me if she remains anonymous. No
Hello?
problem.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead. We're here.
Okay, yes. I've actually spoke to you a couple of years ago, and you were quite helpful. But I want to address the problem, and it appears to be a growing one, in Texas, where police are misusing their powers and technology to intimidate people off of their property for their own personal profit and private agendas. How can a citizen best address this problem?
Well, I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. I'm getting a lot of feedback on. I keep hearing myself. Now, okay, that's good.
I apologize. We're working on it right here.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure what she's talking about technology doing that, but she did bring up something that I've assailed greatly in this country, and that is asset forfeiture by cops, and then they use that money to offset their own budgets, and that is absolutely criminal. That is a criminal activity from law enforcement. That is a crime. It is a conflict of interest. Should never have been done. Should never have been started. No, I don't mind taking somebody who has been arrested from like a cartel or some drug dealer, and you have to prove in court that their home or anything else you're seizing was ill-gotten, and that goes to some other general fund or whatever, but it does not go directly to the police and salaries.
May I interrupt and clarify?
But yes, please
it's not
do.
necessarily asset forfeiture, but they're trying to, and I have documented dozens of cases, not only to intimidate and harass people, just to scare them off, you
say you're clarifying. I still don't know what kind of technology you're talking about. What kind of technology are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking cell phone surveillance, tracking, use of thermal imaging to determine if a person's home.
Would that
Well,
are you
things like that.
If they're doing,
And I have
illegal
dealt with
searches-
journalists and human rights activists all over the country on this matter, and it is becoming well known.
Okay, well, let me talk to Sheriff Mack. We'll answer the question. I appreciate the call. Sheriff Mack,
Sure.
there was one point that she made that I think this is where she was going. If somebody doesn't have the reason to be thermal imaging you in your home, if there's no probable cause, but they're still doing it, what do we do to stop that?
Well, again, I would say that if we are training our sheriffs and our local police departments in what I was talking about earlier, to adhere to the Constitution and not just Supreme Court decisions, but to literally adhere to the Constitution. If they have probable cause and can swear to a judge that they have probable cause and that they need to do this sort of thing, but it seems like to me if they could do thermal imaging effectively, then why can't they find El Chapo, and why couldn't they find Osama bin Laden? And
You're opening up a whole can of worms
find,
there, Sheriff. A whole can
they
of
can
worms.
find just about any of us anytime they want, and seemingly do so all the time. They can find marijuana plants inside a warehouse or inside somebody's home, but they can't find Osama bin Laden or El Chapo or other desperate criminals who have been committing serious murder and crime against American citizens. So I'm not sure I quite understand that, and that presents another problem with our law enforcement community, especially the federal government right there. I do not support NDAA. I think that's another criminal activity from our own federal government, especially Mr. Obama. I do not support the NSA taping and monitoring of American citizens. I do not support the federal government monitoring and controlling the Internet. And I believe in freedom. I believe in the Bill of Rights. And if you don't ever train law enforcement as to what those basics really are, then these problems are going to continue. And I really go back, and I will beat that drum over and over, that we've got to readdress training in law enforcement, or these types of abuses are going to get worse.
Yes, sir. Time is ticking, so I want to ask you another question here that's going to lead into our next segment, Sheriff Mack. And it's, in your estimation, and I'll ask for a quick answer on this one so we can go into the next segment, but in your estimation, study and belief, what is the most important right we have and why? I know that might be hard because many go hand in hand with each other, but I ask anyway, which one do you think is most important?
Well, after the three basics that are outlined in the Declaration of Independence, life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness is an absolute vital right that gets violated quite often by our own government. After that, if you turn to the Bill of Rights and you look at all of those, first there's 5 rights alone in the First Amendment, and those are all extremely important. But I think all of them are pretty much meaningless if we are disarmed. If you have a populace that is disarmed, as George Mason said, then you are a slave. And so I'm going to have to say the Second Amendment.
I would have to agree with you. The second one protects the rest. Okay.
Correct.
Sheriff Mack, we're going to go into the next segment that was a topic of interest. I call it topic of interest. It could be anything. But this particular week, it's about the Bill of Rights and the preamble. Just to make clear what a preamble is, I'm going to read a preamble that I hope everybody knows, just to give you an idea what we're talking about. It's off the Constitution, and it reads, "We the people," the first 3 words are bigger than the rest, "we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." If you are not familiar with that preamble, you've been living under a rock, okay? So, but that one's a very common one. But that's what the preamble is to the Constitution, and I was not aware till some time ago, it's been a while now, that there was a preamble to the Bill of Rights. So what I want to do is give you a very quick history here. From 1787 to 89, they ratified the Constitution. In 1789, it was ratified, done, boom. Then, in December 15th, 1791, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution was ratified as well. So let me read to you, unless Sheriff Mack, you wanted to read it verbatim by memory because you had mentioned it. What would you like to do? You want me to read it?
Well, I know the preamble. I know the preamble of the Constitution, but there's also a preamble of the Bill of Rights, and I don't have that one memorized.
Okay, let me read that one. The conventions, and this is so important, and the first paragraph is so big. The conventions of a number of states, having at the time of their adopting the Constitution, expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses be added, and as extending the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. I won't even read the rest, but that first paragraph says they want an express desire to prevent misconstruction or abuse, that further declaratory restrictive clauses be added, henceforth the 10 Amendments. So in other words, the Constitution's great, but they wanted to make clear, sure, absolute, that there was no confusion as to the rights of the people.
Well, you know what I call the Bill of Rights? I have one word.
What?
Untouchables.
Yes, that's right. I remember watching
the Bill of Rights is a list of untouchables. And who can't touch them? Any government official. Any governmental body, president, Congress, state legislatures, governors, sheriffs, cops, dog catchers. These are the 10 basic rights, and there's about, if you total all of them, there's about 28 to 30 just in the Bill of Rights alone, because there's 5 in number 1.
Yes, sir.
And so if you count them up, there's maybe about 28 in the Bill of Rights, principles of freedom that government can never touch. These 10 basic fundamentals are the Declaration of Rights that government can never touch. And after 20,000 gun control laws, you would think that Congress and people in Washington, D.C. think that the Second Amendment says just the opposite of what it says. And these people are, when they have an agenda, they do not care about the law. They do not care about you or me or anyone else. They will support and promote their Hitleric ideas and agendas despite the Constitution. And
Sure.
That's what I find extremely scary in this country, and that's why we must have sheriffs and local officials who stand and defend liberty, because no one in Washington, D.C. is going to. They're going to do just the opposite.
Yes, sir. Now, Sheriff Mack, I'm going to read these briefly, and after that, time will be ticking out. I want you to finish it up with any type of information you want to give out there as to where people should go, contact information, things of that nature. But let me read these real quick.
Perfect.
Amendment 1, Congress shall make no law representing an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I mean, how many?
I think you used the wrong word. I think you misread that. Representing or regarding?
Let me see here.
Congress shall make no law.
Respecting an establishment of...
Respecting, that's the word.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Okay.
Okay, Amendment number 2. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Look up the word infringed. Amendment number 3. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by the law. Amendment 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Fifth Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces, or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. I apologize for my stuttering here. I got bad eyes. Okay. Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right of a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his assistance. Seventh Amendment. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall otherwise re-examined in court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. Number 8, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. Number 9 is a big one too, Sheriff. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And then the 10th one is very important as well. They're all important. The powers not delegated in the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are your Bill of Rights. Use them or lose them. Sheriff Mack, any comments?
Yeah, and I think the 9th probably needs to be explained a little bit, and it's kind of the 9th and 10th are hand in hand, and they're basically telling all public officials, just in case you think we forgot something, you can't do that either.
Bingo. Exactly.
And the ninth says basically this: if just because we didn't mention a right doesn't mean the people didn't maintain it and retain it. For instance, the Constitution says nothing about you or me having the right to be a father. But we already know we have that. It is one of those self-evident rights as declared in the Declaration of Independence. I don't need government to tell me I don't have that or that I do have that. And that's pretty much what the Supreme Court violated when they made the ruling about marriage. They violated that. They had no jurisdiction over that issue whatsoever. First of all, they violated the First Amendment regarding respecting an establishment of religion. That is a religious practice that they cannot interfere with. And I'm not saying, I don't care where you line up on the issue. The plain and simple fact of it is the federal government has no jurisdiction over that issue. And they should have said, this isn't our issue. In fact, Scalia did say that it wasn't their issue to decide. And yet the others, though, who have been hired to be political hitmen for the president, they did their jobs. They did what they were hired to do. So the Ninth Amendment is vital in maintaining the rights that we already have by nature of our birth and that we were endowed by our Creator with. Doesn't matter who you believe the Creator was, or even if you believe He's not there, then they cover that too, or by the laws of nature. That's what we have by the laws of nature. So that's what we need to remember. These are a list of untouchables, that government cannot touch these, and yet they do it all the time as if the Bill of Rights did not even exist. That's where we come in. We have fallen asleep. We must wake up. We must stand together, and I'm asking each and every one of your listeners to join us in this holy cause of liberty, as Patrick Henry called it, the holy cause of liberty in defending liberty, county by county, sheriff by sheriff, state by state. We take America back, one county, one parish at a time, and we stand for liberty in our Constitution and the Bill of Rights together, and we're asking you to join us in this, and go to CSPOA, stands for Constitutional Sheriffs Peace Officers Association, CSPOA, CSPOA.org. Join us there. You can get our Tools for Liberty there, our DVDs and my books. Very, very extremely helpful and powerful. And just maybe we can get another miracle here and take our freedom and our Constitution back.
Well, I think the good Lord has a bunch of miracles. We just need to apply ourselves so He'll feel we're worthy of them.
They don't happen unless we're working.
That's right. So once again, everybody, if you're informed and inactive, what good is it? It's just like buying a gun. If you like the Second Amendment, you buy a gun. Well, did you really do anything for the Second Amendment? No. Buy a gun and tell somebody I have my right and speak it. But being an inactive participant doesn't help anybody. The active, informed individuals can hopefully sway or wake up, make aware, get your head out of the sand, the ignorance of some people who are not just aware of what's going on. So hopefully together, like Sheriff Mack said, we can get this thing rolling here and get it turned around the way it's supposed to. Sheriff Mack, I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it's been to talk with you. The time's ticking away. I have a few other segments I must do. You're more than welcome to stay on and listen. If not, I can contact you after the show, and we can...
No, I've got to run too, and I appreciate being on with you. Thanks so much for having me, man.
My pleasure. You take care. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.